what are your thoughts where, again, we see silver's up, the second day in a row it's up big, and you just see some of these stocks selling off? What would you say to folks who are asking why? Hello there, my friends. Chris Marcus here with you for Arcadia Economics. And as we have, what is silver above today? It goes up almost $1 a day now, kind of reminding me of 2011. And yeah, today we have silver about 24.5 on a Thursday afternoon as I record with Andrew O'Donnell of SuperCharged Stocks. Andrew, we picked a great day for you to come on. The silver crowd has got to be happy. See on the Kitco chart, up $1.47. Although, as we will dig into, people are wondering, why are the mining stocks not higher? It's interesting. We actually see a lot of red. There's Silvercrest down 4% today, which is kind of unusual. So we will dig into all that good stuff, but it's great to have you on here. And we did a call a while ago. So welcome on in. And how are you doing today?
Doing great. I'm thrilled to be here. I'm a fan of your work, so it's fun to be on. And we've been on panels before, and definitely we talk the same talk often the same themes we see. It's very similar. So this is a real pleasure. Of course, I planned all of this market things to correlate today, so I'm glad it worked out. No, yeah. I mean, what a time to be alive. This is pretty. I mean, it's absolutely chaotic, but at the same time, people in this space and be watching shows like yourself know we've been waiting for these events to occur, and however the company.
Yeah, and like you said, it is a darn exciting time because, we've had 1980 and we had 2011, and this is, I mean, it reminds me of what it must feel like to play in the Super Bowl, where it's a very distinct experience that you can't simulate. Exciting for me, my second time going through it now. But Andrew, what are your thoughts where, again, we see silver's up, the second day in a row it's up big, and you just see some of these stocks selling off? What would you say to folks who are asking why?
Yeah, see, this is one of these strange occurrences, because if it was just one or two mining companies, you go, oh, I wonder if they had news today, or I wonder if there was something that specifically happened with that company. But we're seeing it across the board. I mean, there's lots of different factors that could come into play, and these things don't always correlate perfectly. But part of it might be the fear that it's ramped up so high that the valuation is are getting a little bit carried away, and the volatility in the market has risen. People that buy the producers, I find, are a lot more conservative than, like, we can pull up some junior exploration companies that are up 5-8 times right now. There's that kind of wild and crazy speculator type is rampaging right now, whereas someone who looks at just this year numbers, looks at the specific production levels, and correlates with price, might be actually a little bit more nervous today than someone on my side who is just gearing up and feeling really optimistic and excited. So I think it's that psychology of understanding, why are you in a First Majestic or a Hecla? What was the point in buying that one? And usually I think it's because they're a bit more conservative and they're anticipating future growth.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, because, I mean, I think there are a lot of people who think there's going to be a big pullback. Things are going too fast. And if silver's at $28 for a day, but then, it goes back to $20 tomorrow, which I don't think will happen, but, it's possible. And I mean, for the miners really to capture the value, it's when they're selling their product for a couple of quarters or for an extended period of time at these high prices, which would justify. So it sounds like that's partly playing in there as well.
Yeah, I think so, because we saw a gold run and it had its bit of a go, and we were waiting for silver, but this has moved so fast that once again it's a different investor that is in the mining sector anyway, and certainly then if they're looking at a tried and true company like this, I almost want to see a slow it down. let's carry this out over 3 to 5 years instead of, a massive swing, a big jump, and everyone pile into a brand name mining stock. Everyone goes to First Majestic. Everyone goes to Wheaton. Is that, listen, let's try to have this as a slow burn growth, and let's enjoy it. Let's not run and sprint to the finish. Let's kind of move this bar along more efficiently. But it does. I mean, I look at today, and I'm gonna scratch my head for a while, because this should be a day that everyone starts looking, and your generalist who doesn't know a lot about mining goes, okay, calls a broker, says, what are some name brands I need to be looking at? And these big name brands, they're, Endeavor, Hecla, First Majestic, they're going to say, listen, if you want to be a safe play, let's go buy these. So it is a bit of a head shake today as to why they're down. Silver's up. We're pretty optimistic about the precious metals, and especially if you're, say, like a Warren Buffett who actually loves silver. There's an industrial use and a clean green solar panel use for silver. So, I think there's a lot more upside than any kind of trade down today.
Yep. Yeah, I think it's one of those things where in time it sorts itself out. It's funny, I'm actually reading Phil Hellmuth, the poker player's autobiography, and he talks about how he learned to control his emotions, where, he'd be far ahead, but the guy gets the one card in the deck at the end, and, he would lose his cool. And I've been thinking how, I have similarities in my own life, and it's like, there are going to be days where it makes no sense. There will probably be days where the metals are down and maybe the stock market's up and we see the stocks fly. So again, over the long term, is maybe just not looking at it every 5 minutes or every day. Perhaps if we could hibernate for 2 years and wake up and have our mansion in each color, is that a good way to approach it?
It's funny. I mean, it sounds totally unprofessional, but sometimes that, in my specific case, that would have worked out. If I just put on a trade and then just don't look at it for a year, Andrew, just leave it alone. Stop picking at it, looking at it. Because every time I start looking at it, my brain wants to find more. And sometimes that original thesis was just simply correct, and it was just a time frame. And as we know, it's one thing to say, hey, this market's going to go up, but you have to factor the other component of that, which is, well, when and at what price are you getting out? So it's just, I find that the markets are an extreme way in which you're going to find out what type of person you are. And that mixture of fear and greed, if you can harness that, you can find what type of, and we talked about this briefly, is that I'm not a trader. I've known lots of traders. I don't have the personality. I can see great macro trends, and I'm pretty good. I mean, I've got a lot of good stock picks, but that's because I see a giant overall trend going on. If I had to sit in front of a computer looking at the market move, and I'm looking at the information every second, I'm just overthinking it. That just doesn't work for me. So for me, I found a sweet spot where it's finding the trend, and then the flip side is knowing when that trend's over. But we're in the bottom of the first inning, maybe the top of the second inning here with this cycle. So we've got a lot more plays to happen, and I don't want to get too caught up on the minutia of each and every single move. The direction is correct. Will there be a pullback? Sure, there's going to be a bit of a pullback, but I'm a longer term guy, and there's going to be a lot of money to be made.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, because even as a former option trader, which was short-term in nature, when I think about do I feel is my real edge, I think it doesn't matter if I can document it, but I think the silver price will go up in the long term. I mean, I could flip coins on what's going to happen tomorrow, but which do I want to really commit my capital to? So I think what you said makes sense there. You also mentioned another interesting name, Warren Buffett. And I remember hearing people say, well, if the metals are so great, how come Warren Buffett doesn't like them? And I think people are pointing to his often bizarre comments about gold, which seems a little peculiar, especially for folks who know his father, Howard Buffett, who was a well-known sound money advocate. The guy sounds like Ron Paul. So when Warren Buffett just pulls the Ben Bernanke, he's like, I don't understand gold. I don't know anybody else who does. Seems bizarre, yet Warren Buffett also, he didn't just invest in silver once. He invested in silver twice And perhaps you can talk about that. I know at least in the 90s, his position of physical was larger than the Hunt brothers. Not sure about the 60s, but sounds like you're familiar with both of those. Anything you could share there?
I mean, I know both. I mean, the Hunt brothers story, which is a very exciting story, and I just know that he's a fan from an industrial perspective. But I find him interesting because, and this could just be that even someone as bright and truly a genius in what he does, is that his fault, even during the tech boom, the first tech run, was that he didn't invest in anything tech. And, he had gotten beaten up a little bit because people were like, well, you don't understand the markets anymore. They've changed, which is not true. It's just a short-term cyclical kind of thing. And he felt a little bit out of touch back then because people were saying, well, this new economy, which is the same story we hear now, the new economy, the new this, the new that, which is just a rehash of the first internet bubble. He's found a valuation theme that works, and it works specifically in the companies that he likes. So it's hard to live your whole life where that valuation models time and time and time and time again, and it's held true to then go, is there an intrinsic value in gold? And he's older, and you go, well, I've never had to experience, and I've had a lot of life events, and we've never had to see a big major run. Oh, the world is collapsing. Let's run to gold. But this is kind of one of those times in history, though, where people are looking and going, there is so much happening. There's so much chaos. And I'm forced to go look to see what is value. And if I don't know, and if I just say, oh, it's the US dollar, that's not value. It opens up a very broad conversation. And I think to a lot of people, especially if they're very technical, and you're a CFA, is that you start having to say, listen, these models, if it's a negative interest rate, these models don't work. This doesn't work. There's a lot of fear, but that fear also translates into, I need to find something that has quote unquote value. And, this gold, whatever it is, maybe it's biological. We're intrinsically drawn to it. We get it. And silver is right close behind.
Yeah, plus if you look at gold, at least, it's been a little while since I calculated it, but I believe gold has outperformed the Dow Jones and NASDAQ, Warren Buffett. And I think that was even before, if you measured even before the recent run-up. I'm sure the numbers are bigger now. Andrew, I have this little fun thing I like to do in honor of your first appearance on the show. Hopefully we'll have more. I have, in my background, where did it go? Well, crisis investing. You see my digital screen. Since we're talking stocks today, I'm back on my old specialist trading post on the New York Stock Exchange. You can see Fat Frank and Tony Pensavalle behind me. And the Amerivest booth that I used to duke it out with. But in Doug Casey's book, this was from 1979, some indication of the magnitude of the move I anticipate is given by penny silver stocks during the 1960s, where from 1962 to 1968, the average penny silver stock moved upwards over 150 times in price, not 150%, 150 times in price. One went up over 1,000 times. But this wasn't when silver was going to 50. This is due to a mere doubling of the price when it went from $1.09 to $2.50. So I agree with what you said, that we are early in this. And again, to be clear, that does not guarantee that anything happens, although silver goes to 50 or 100. So any comments on that, or the type of moves that might be possible, or things to watch out for or not to expect?
Well, I mean, I'm a big fan of Doug Casey's as well. And that's, if he's got some information, those are incredible numbers. I can tell you just from own personal experience that when this mining sector moves, there's very few that bring the kind of massive results that you can have. And once again, I always preface this is a speculative market. It is penny stocks often, but the attractive thing with that is that there's a bit of a easier way to value these things if you just look at a ton of different newsletter writers and YouTube people out there, that you can see if you've got a solid management and you just kind of followed management along, you're going to have some success and follow their plays. I mean, there's some easy strategies that someone can do, but right now you can look at stocks and get some for like pennies on the dollar. with management teams that blow you away. And you think these guys aren't doing this because they need a paycheck. These are mind finders. They're just hungry. They love doing this kind of stuff. And if you translate the same kind of team into a tech, San Francisco based fund, everyone will be chasing after them and putting money with them, and that will probably happen. The other coin on that is that I always kind of liken this, and it's very simple: is Apple loses $1 billion today, who cares? I mean, it's not really that big a deal. You drop $1 billion into the Canadian mining sector, that's going to move. Like, that's a big deal. And $1 billion today is literally nothing. It's not even, that's not a big thing. So I'm not saying $1 billion is coming into the market, but it's not hard to show people gains and show wins and show silver and gold. And then people go, oh yeah, why do we care? It's an easy story to relate. And when the retail investor starts looking and they start, buying, 1,000 shares or $1,000 worth of shares here and there, it moves. It starts moving. So we're in an exciting time. That's for sure.
Yeah, and while I may be joking and don't expect this to happen between government bailouts and Fed buying ETFs, maybe that'll be the sign we know things are finally changing. If one day Powell comes out, he says he's going to buy shares of SLV, and they try and pump $1 billion of their funny money into that. That, or when they send Bernanke out into his chopper to just drop the $1,000 bills.
Just money.
And since it seems like we're not that far off from that, again, silver, up from 18, almost $10. Let's say we continue to have a rally. In terms of, maybe let's not expect 150 baggers. Hopefully, be surprised. But in terms of, like, if you're looking at silver stocks, is there a particular type of stock or a profile, or for folks who do see a big move coming, what would you look for when you're evaluating the different names?
Yeah. So once again, I like getting in cheap. I mean, that's for me. And I actually avoid a lot of the producers. I mean, those are great if you've got a portfolio and you're looking to manage a portfolio. For me, I like these penny stocks because you can just be mom and pop. Like, I look at like the big board. I look at NASDAQ. Look at that. That's the big board, $1 trillion funds, BlackRock. Big huge funds. They need to move big amounts of money. There's only certain things they can buy. Even if they loved mining, they can't come into mining. They just can't place the money. So I look at this as being a great equalizer for the average person. Is that you can come into these things with $500 or $1,000 and do a bit of homework. So, and a lot of that homework has to do with who's the team. Look at some videos online, ask yourself who you follow and why do you like them. That kind of follow the management, follow the story, is that there's going to be a lot of projects coming up that are, close to Riverside, a project close to Hecla's here. And, or we just bought a property off of Hecla and we're going to run it. And people think, oh, well, why would Hecla sell it if it's good? Well, because Hecla can't work every single project they have. They farm them out and they keep stocking it. They're investors just like anyone else. So once the generalist investor realizes, oh, this is just how this market works, the flow of money starts coming in. And then, that's, it's a lot easier to move and double your money from 10 cents to 20 cents than it is at 70 to 150. But some of these stocks they'll go past $100. I'm sure of it. And I just kind of, once again, draw it down to the psychology of, in these times of extreme duress, whether it's social, health, everything else, I don't think you have to argue with anyone that that's happening right now. There's a constant flight to, I need to understand, I want safety. And if you look at the Great Depression, the stocks that did well, mining, oil and gas, and then tech. And tech was only possible because you had the energy and the goods for mining to make it happen. So if you want safe, even though it's technically a speculative market, I look at safe now being, I want the stuff that makes stuff rather than owning Apple shares that makes a product and sells an iPhone. I want all those component pieces because that's value. And that's even more value than sitting in cash in my bank account in Canadian dollar or US dollar.
Yeah, and especially in the mining industry, that's one of the things I like, where you can actually access people directly. And and if you really do your homework, not in a non-public manner, of course, but I mean, the things you point out, when you actually can get to know these guys, you know how they think, and it's like, well, this thing's going to have to be sold, or these guys are going to have to do that. And fortunately, you share your expertise, and we will touch on that in a second, how people can get access to that. Although, before we wrap up, I know you actually wrote about GoldfinX,
Yeah.
who appeared on the show about a week ago. And basically, they have a business model. It's priced in blockchain, so it's a token, but essentially, for the people who are out mining stuff by hand, putting whatever chemicals in the river, GoldfinX gets them, and you tell me if I have this right, basically gets them better equipment that increases the yield of gold output. They increase the distribution to get them a better price, and a portion of the gold comes back to the token holders. Is it correct to say that essentially if they keep getting it out to good groups that can implement and use the technology, that that's the business model? And any thoughts on that one?
Yeah, this one is fascinating because I find crypto challenging to value, but without a doubt, I see there being a future there. Let me separate that with blockchain, the absolute necessity of blockchain, which is wonderful, the ledger system, and how that incorporates into even this story of GoldfinX, is that I liken it to, like, the UN's able to tell you exactly where a seed of grain comes from, that they can account now for exactly where it came from. Okay, this seed of canola came from Alberta. They can do the same for gold. They can say this gram came from this mine at this period of time. So they can start to determine, is this fair trade? Is this kind of like the blood diamond story, that type of thing? And this type of ESG story of chain of custody, where did this come from? What's the value? That's going to be built in, because right now, some of these artisanal miners, as they're called, or I mean, quite frankly, it's illegal mining. It is the number one polluter, which is not, everyone thinks, they think of a giant mine being, oh, they're the one who's the big polluter. No. It's the number one polluter are artisanal miners. There's millions of artisanal miners out there. And I don't fault them, because they're putting their life and limb at risk, literally handling mercury. And if you tell them that it's dangerous and it's unsafe, their response is, I have to eat. I've got a family. Like, I'm not worried about tomorrow. And that mindset, you can't fault them. Like, no, I mean, if you tell them that it's bad for the environment, it just doesn't, it's not going to equate. You need, and this sounds awful, to create the luxury of that concern by having a company like GoldfinX come in and say, listen, we're going to get you, say, $1 million. It's going to be backed by this equipment. This equipment means that you can get this gold out safely, but also we're going to get you the permits. It's not illegal anymore. You own this. It's your communities. And for that, we're going to pay you in this coin, and you're going to be able to buy equipment with this coin. You're going to be able to buy Coke down the road with this coin. Your community is going to start to use this, because that whole community is underbanked anyway. And often, if it's, say, West Africa, they're using their digital phone already to buy everything. They're way ahead as far as a wallet or a fintech. So for that play, is it, yes, it's a streaming play. It is backed. There's a trust that owns the gold, but it is this whole exciting ESG story that you hear a lot about from the UN and BlackRock and Goldman. All these firms are talking about ESG, sustainable growth. And what I like about it is that it's saying we're going to hand control over to the people actually doing the work. So it isn't their kids having to pull the water out of the water, out of the lake or whatever. The kids can actually go to school. They can build up their communities. They're going to get a fair trade price now for the gold. It isn't going to be at 40%. And then who in their small community is going to have the 40 grand to take land title? That's not a concern. Like, they don't have that, once again, luxury of having that process. So this allows them to have access to the process, legalize it, and the governments like it, because once again, now you're legalized, we can tax you, and you're going to be building up that community. So I see it as being a great possible story of capital markets solving a problem that government couldn't. And I mean, it's early, but I love that those key talking points. We'll have to see as it comes along. But I certainly think it's one of those ones to keep on your radar and keep a look at, because it's hitting a lot of sweet spots. And once again, I like to look at these big, huge organizations, whether it's BlackRock with $8 trillion. If they're talking about key themes and they're saying this is how they're pushing the world, this is where they're putting their money, then I don't need to do a lot of heavy lifting going, you know what, I think that's going to be a good play. So I like what they're up to, and I'm doing a lot more research and work with them, but it's certainly the most interesting coin because it backs that Ethereum coin, which is the smart contract play on top of a real ESG feel-good story.
Yeah, and isn't it also interesting that when you explain those different pieces, we have a system which is now circumventing the dollar and greatly improving the life for people around the globe, the environment. So again, I wonder, whenever this dollar nonsense is done with, maybe it'll be a transition, but I think there's a good way of life on the other side of that. And Andrew, perhaps just in wrapping up to help guide people for anyone who would like access to your experience, can you share the website and how they can find you and stay up to date with what you're doing?
So I am Andrew O'Donnell at SuperChargedStocks.com. Send me an email anytime, Andrew at SuperCharged Stocks. Lots of videos, lots of content. I try to make most of it free. I am building a subscriber base as well. That's also going to be paid. And for that, you're looking at exactly what I'm buying. So I like to cover a lot of different stories, and I'm very careful. I used to be a Merrill Lynch broker. I won't tell you what to buy, when to buy, how to buy it. It's not my job. What I do is I kind of show you, this is who I am. This is my risk curve. This is what I like. And here are the companies I've either bought or work with. And luckily, there's been a lot of big winners there, a lot of big names. And I am writing for the generalist person. I'm not writing technical reports for an analyst to read. I'm trying to decipher as much as this information and get mom and pa real excited about, why do I care about copper? Like, if I can get you excited about copper, then we're on to something.
Yeah, and if anyone could do it, I bet it's you. I love your energy. It's fun every time we talk, and you do your homework, but also I like your approach where it's not, I get the sky is falling, we're going to be shooting each other in the streets, but I mean, I don't think that has to be that way at all. So I appreciate the way you present the information. Been a pleasure having you on the show. We'll have to do this again soon. Hopefully I'll be able to recruit you for a panel at Silverfest coming up September 12th to 13th, which my goal is to make it the hottest silver party since the Hunt brothers. And hopefully we'll have you involved on that. So Andrew, thank you again for joining me here today. And folks, if you'd like, actually, we did have GoldfinX on the show a couple weeks ago. And if you want to hear more about that project that Andrew was just talking about, it is coming your way now.